Okay, and we are live, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to tonight's live stream. We are back. We love to see it. I know people, because I always start like 1 minute late, and people immediately are going to be like, "Go 9:29." This is it. Is it 9:29 today? Yeah. Be quiet. You're not funny. You're not funny anymore. I hate to say it, but you're not. All right. Anyways, guys, we'll start the stream in about 3 minutes here. Let me start the countdown, and I'll see you guys in like 3 minutes. So true. I'm telling you, VinceDao nationalism, literally the future of the Republican Party. You cannot stop it. Yo, look, I'm the baby now.
This monument will never be desecrated. These heroes will never be defaced. From this day forward, a new vision will govern our land. From this day forward, it's going to be only America first. America first.
John, thoughts on VinceDao nationalism?
Oh, I mean, I've been campaigning that for the better part of 3 years now. Before I even knew Vince, it actually appeared to me in a dream, and I just have sort of been trying to like subtly, when they say John Doyle dog whistles, he does, but not the way they think. It's always about VinceDao nationalism. They sound like a white nationalist. No, I'm a VinceDao man.
Americanism, not globalism, will be our credo as long as we are led by politicians who will not put America first. Then we can be assured that other nations will not treat America with respect, the respect that we deserve. The American people will come first once again.
Millions of Americans sincerely love Donald Trump. They love Donald Trump because no one else loved them. The country they built, the country their ancestors fought for over hundreds of years, has left them to die in their unfashionable little towns, mocked and despised by the sneering half-wits with finance degrees but no actual skills who seem to run everything all of a sudden.
All right, and we are live, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back. Someone asked me how I did on my first college exam last night. I did okay. That's what I'll answer. I did okay. It was not like a stellar performance. I didn't flunk it either. It was just kind of mediocre. So there's your answer to that question. Anyways, Noah sends $2. He says, "Let's go." Thank you very much, King. We love to see it. Before we begin tonight, I'm sure this is going to be a topic in the room. Yeah, I do have like a little bit of a beard going on. I have not shaved since Friday, and I promised on IG Live that I do like at least one piece of YouTube content before I shave this off, because honestly, I'm not really a big fan of this. I know there's going to be a bunch of people demanding, no, keep the beard, keep the beard. Listen, people don't understand this. If I was like white, I would keep the beard, because white guys tend to grow beards pretty well. But the problem is that I'm Asian. Asian guys don't really grow beards in like even ratios. Like it just comes out really weird. You just come out looking like Confucius. So, you know, I may have like Italian hair growth genes, which hypothetically would allow me to actually grow out a beard, you know, from my 1/4 Italian side. But the problem is it's going to grow in Asian facial patterns. And that's just not great. And the beard also kind of makes me break out a little bit. So I don't really like it. Okay, we're going to be getting rid of it after this, but enjoy it while it lasts. Okay, enjoy the beard, folks. All right. Anyways, guys, as you read in the title, tonight we have a special group of people on Twitter we have to address. I'll be honest, these people have sort of annoyed me. I know Red Eagle's in chat tonight, annoyed Red Eagle, and just all of kind of the APU boys collectively for a long time now. But I woke up on Twitter and, you know, and I know the meme is to say I chose violence. Let me be clear, I did not choose violence, but I did choose a little bit of conflict. Let's say it like that, because, you know, I wake up on Twitter today and we actually got some great news, another solid Trump endorsement, which is the fact that Trump has endorsed Kari Lake. Now, I'm guessing you don't really know the whole context behind this like Arizona governor race, because you're actually like a human being who, you know, like it actually has a life. And unless you live in Arizona, you're likely a human being that actually has a life and doesn't like soy jack over all these random races all over the place like election Twitter tends to do, right? But anyways, let me actually open the tweet for you so we can kind of reference what we're talking about here. Give me 1 second here. All right. So this is what really inspired. This is the last straw with the Basement Caucus on Twitter, folks. So Trump has endorsed Kari Lake over Kimberly Yee. Now, Kari Lake is a woman who was basically, I believe, the host of like the 5 o'clock news or whatever in the state of Arizona. I believe, I don't even think it was just for Phoenix. I think it might have actually been statewide for a lot of years. So this is someone who is like a local celebrity down in Arizona, someone who is very, very popular in Arizona. And the thing is, and we usually don't say this about girl politicians on the right, but this is an exception to the rule, is that Kari Lake is actually pretty based. I mean, Kari Lake is someone who is extremely solid on the issues. Kari Lake is a fighter. Kari Lake is someone who, for the most part, really does get it, right? And so Trump has actually endorsed Kari Lake over this apparently this Asian woman, Kimberly Yee, right? And you have this group of people on Twitter, and we call them the Basement Caucus. Now, I will say that the so-called term Basement Caucus is a little bit kind of wide, right? Like there's a lot of sort of people who I would argue are a part of the Basement Caucus, but I think overall kind of a solid explanation of what it is seriously people who need to get off. Usually these people are like high school kids too. People who seriously just need to get off Twitter and basically enter the real world for 2 freaking seconds. Again, there's no solid set definition of what it means to be a part of the Basement Caucus, but oftentimes it's a safe bet that a lot of them are like 16-year-old wannabe electoral political analysts, right? These people, I swear, you know, Red Eagle, I think the worst thing that Red Eagle ever did was have people want to follow in his footsteps. Because you have someone like Red Eagle who is a Chad and is actually good at what he does and actually understands what he does, but in the wake of that, because of the fact that it's like, hey, here's this guy, you know, he's not like a political science professor, but he's good at electoral analysis and he can do it. And you have all these like little kid larpers who basically try to like follow him in doing that. And that's essentially what you have, I would argue, in this part of the Basement Caucus. You have like young little kids who don't know what the hell is going on. They really know nothing, but basically trying to be electoral analysts, largely like people like Red Eagle or maybe on the other side LTE. But like, do you understand here? Do you understand like that's kind of the people we're talking about? So you have all these kind of like wannabe right-wing political analysts. And again, remember that these are people who don't go out in the real world. These are people who larpers. Oftentimes they larp as like a fan of one certain politician or another, and they absolutely soy jack over like random elections that quite frankly nobody else cares about and are totally irrelevant to the national scene. But the reason why I really saw their reaction to this and was just like, okay, that's it, I'm so done with these people, is the fact that again, here are the options. You have Kari Lake, who is very popular, who is a local celebrity in the state of Arizona, who is also very solid on the issues, versus this Asian woman, Kimberly Yee, who is just kind of lukewarm on the issues. Okay, now you keep in mind it's Arizona, right? This is a state that we can still win. This is not a state that's totally out of the realm of possibility. Ask yourself what makes sense in terms of the endorsement. Why not endorse the local celebrity who is based and is actually solid on the issues? And that's exactly what Trump did. But instead, right? Instead, again, we call him the Basement Caucus. We hate the Basement Caucus. And Rep appropriately predicts it. He says, in before Basement Caucus soy jacks attempt a ratio and fail, claiming Lake is a bad candidate because she is to the right of John McCain. And this is a huge, I think, trend among Basement Caucus Twitter, is basically the proposition that it's like, well, if Republicans want to win a state like Arizona, you know, we can't run any type of remotely a solid candidate, right? It always has to be like a John McCain type or the other. And basically, the argument here is that even though Kari Lake, again, is extremely solid on the issues, Kari Lake is one of us. Kari Lake is not someone who comes from the Republican. Kari Lake, in many ways, is an extremely solid candidate. I would argue, like, top tier, one of the better candidates that you probably have nationwide, you know, this entire cycle. But their argument is, no, you have to choose the neocon establishment Asian woman because Kari Lake is unelectable. So the reason why I look at this and I'm like, you people are genuinely morons, you don't know what you're talking about, and you need to go outside, is the fact that, well, let's just consider this for about 2 seconds. Again, I'm not an electoral autist like Red Eagle is, right? I'm not someone who's particularly super big on the electoral stuff, but you really just look at this at the most basic rudimentary level. Again, just like basically go outside, basically understand the two worlds for like 3 seconds. It is very easy to rationalize how Kari Lake, even though she is harder right and more populist and more Trumpian than the Kimberly Yee woman, very easy to understand why Kari Lake would be the better candidate here. Again, if you're living in the real world, because if you just consider this for 2 seconds, who is Kari Lake? Kari Lake is a huge celebrity in the state of Arizona. Okay, a huge one, and a very popular one at that. That alone, right? Meanwhile, so you have someone who is extremely popular, someone who's like the Arnold Schwarzenegger, basically, of Arizona. The Basement Caucus would rather have this basically no-name, you know, random woman named Kimberly Yee, who is less solid on the issues, be the candidate instead, because supposedly that is more electable. Does that make a lot of sense to you? Because it is basically it's like a simple electoral fact that anytime you run some type of like war hero or big time celebrity, that inherently gives you a huge advantage. Okay, we know this to be the case. This is why Arnold Schwarzenegger miraculously became governor of California, and I think it's very ironic as well, because a lot of these same people are very pro Herschel Walker running for Senate in Georgia. Okay, so you have Herschel. Okay, so let's compare two things. Number one, in order to win both Arizona and Georgia, you need a big share of like the suburban vote. So they're not exactly the same state, but in many ways, like demographically speaking, in terms of like the type of candidate you need, there's a strong case. Arizona and Georgia are pretty similar states, and the sort of that key vote that decides the state in both states is like college-educated suburban voters for the most part, right? So you have that. Now, Kari Lake and Herschel Walker, these are very similar candidates. Okay, so let me just break down the logic here. So Kari Lake, who is she? A big-time popular celebrity from within the state. Who is Herschel Walker? Again, neither of these people are the political establishment. Neither of these people are established politicians, but they are celebrities. These Basement Caucus neocons are the same people who make the case that, you know, Herschel Walker is great for Georgia because Herschel Walker is a celebrity there. You know, he played football at the University of Georgia, this and that. So he's electable. He's going to win. All true. But I ask you, why does that not apply to Kari Lake? Because these are basically the same candidate. You're saying that Herschel Walker is a good candidate because of the celebrity status. Oh, let's also point out that these are both people who are sort of aligned with like the Trump cultural movement, right? Both of these people are people who were kind of like apolitical celebrities before, who like under the Trump era really came over to sort of our side. What is the difference? What really is the difference? Well, I think I would argue probably the difference is, and the reason why the Basement Caucus is such big fans of Herschel Walker, but so anti-Kari Lake probably is the fact that Kari Lake is actually more principled and actually basically understands Trumpism and the Trump movement much more than Herschel Walker is. And I'm not anti-Herschel Walker, but I think it's just a fact. You kind of look at their platforms, you look at their talking points. It is very clear. Kari Lake is actually much more of a fighter. Kari Lake is someone who actually basically gets it. And Kari Lake is someone who, really understands kind of the point, I think, rather in our country more so than Herschel Walker. Herschel Walker's, largely speaking, his political identity has been kind of the Brexit stuff, right? Herschel Walker's political identity was sort of built off kind of disproving that Trump wasn't racist. Meanwhile, you have Kari Lake, who's out here really bringing up like the big issues and really making the case for the wielding of governmental power and stuff like that. It's like, you really look at this, Kari Lake is the more solid candidate. Okay. And that's exactly the reason why these weak Basement Caucus people they're like, no, we can't run Kari Lake, unelectable. Oh, because, if someone is like actually pretty like authentically MAGA and actually it reflects that in rhetoric, well, it's not electable, bro. The electoral autists on Twitter, we just can't stand them. Look, like I said, I'm not a complex electoral analyst, okay? I never claimed to be one of those things, but I think it's pretty common sense. You're running a popular celebrity who is electable just because of that and is pretty solid on the issues and is running a pretty solid campaign. That's as best a candidate as you're going to get. But this is exactly what happens when you make your emphasis elections, right? These are people who've basically built their entire personalities off of, here's how Republicans win elections, this and that. We've gone over this. We talk about this all the time, how elections really are not the most important thing in our country. They're just one aspect of it. But I think this is the exact problem. When you make your entire identity about elections, and people like Rep, kind of get it. They understand it because, they're not like 16 years old. But when you have these like young kids who LARP, who make their entire identity all about like just simply about elections, this is exactly what happens. These people get so obsessed with electability, this and that, which isn't even the case here, that they're willing to basically compromise all semblances of actually running a candidate that is like actually principled here, simply because simply over the case of electability. So anyways, that's what basically awoke me to this. Real American says they are smooth brain. I know, it's so true. They simply are smooth brain. Noah Boyd says, I love gatekeeping. No, we absolutely need to gatekeep. Kimberly Yee is, I guess, the treasurer of all statewide offices. Nobody knows who the treasurer is. And that's the other thing people need to understand. Think about fundraising for a second. Like, we know how important fundraising is. Like, it actually matters because you need resources to run a successful campaign. Someone like Kari Lake has widespread name recognition. It is going to be very easy for someone like Kari Lake to fundraise and gather the resources needed to run a successful campaign. Meanwhile, Kimberly Yee, nobody's ever heard of this person. Half of Arizona hasn't even heard of this person. How do you think that's going to fare out? Like, and don't get me wrong, sometimes the candidate with a name recognition is so bad you'd prefer to run the no-name candidate. But in this case, I don't think there's a case to be made like in any direction. Kari Lake is popular. People in Arizona like Kari Lake. She's basically a local folk hero here, and she is actually solid on the issues. But the basement dwelling caucus on Twitter says things like this, right? It says things like this: good luck losing the general election. Oh yeah. Because look, if we do lose the general election, we lose the general election for whatever reason that is. But like, let me just ask, what do you think we have the better chance at? Again, running a celebrity who is solid and who gets it versus running some like a no-name person. So anyways, I responded. I responded with, the point I've been making. Do you not understand Kari Lake is popular in the state? Do you not understand Kari Lake, is basically a folk hero down there? And it's very interesting because you'll see takes like this as well. Basically, people arguing that like, whoa, but she's too pro-Trump to win in Arizona. It's like, yeah. So let's actually point out the fact to the people who basically make the case that Trumpism is the problem in Arizona and you need basically a bunch of John McCain types to run in the state of Arizona. Look, let's examine the fact that in 2020, so you had two candidates running in Arizona in 2020, obviously. There's Donald Trump, right, in the presidential election, and also you have Martha McSally, okay, who was running against Mark Kelly. Now, Martha McSally, just to I think, refute the whole McCain talking point once and for all, the whole point of, oh, but Trump, no. Okay, so just like, and I think Kimberly Yee's probably a little bit better, but they're similar in the fact that both Martha McSally and Kimberly Yee are basically established politicians in the state. So these are people who more or less are coming from the GOP establishment. But more importantly than that, Martha McSally is someone who basically descends also from that kind of McCain line of Republicans. And in many ways, she was kind of the McCainite type of Republican. Okay. So by that logic, you would think if the problem in Arizona is Trumpism and, you need to run like a neocon candidate, that's the only thing that'll win in Arizona. Please explain why. You can look up for yourself. Donald Trump ran ahead of Martha McSally in 2020. Donald Trump got more votes and a bigger margin in the state of Arizona than Martha McSally. So if it is the case that you need the McCain types, please explain to me why Trump outran Martha McSally against all basically kind of set orthodox rules that you would expect in the state of Arizona, buddy. It doesn't make sense, okay? It doesn't make sense. So we please beg all of the basement caucus on this question, just please be quiet, okay? Just please be quiet. But anyways, that's not even really the point I wanted to make. That's just kind of what inspired me to make this stream, because just the lack of just being in touch with reality, number one, and also kind of, I think largely speaking, the lack of principle. Because you really think about this for a second, I would make the case, even if I was convinced that Kimberly Yee was slightly more electable than Kari Lake, which she's not, I would still make the case for Kari Lake. And the reason being is because, as I brought up, Kari Lake is someone who, and like, I'm not like trying to just like shill for her or whatever, but an honest assessment is that Kari Lake is someone who is very solid on the issues, right? Kari Lake is someone who I would argue, and the reason why I would say it's so important to basically get her in office specifically, we talked about this in the Trump DeSantis video. We talked about the need for a strong state government, right? And the need for basically DeSantis not even to necessarily be the leader. Like we just need Republican states around the country to just have solid governors who at the minimum are on the DeSantis level and preferably are even better than DeSantis, right? There are very few candidates, I would argue, in this gubernatorial race this year that have the potential to be that. But I would argue Kari Lake is actually one such person who has the potential to be that. Now, we don't necessarily know what she's going to govern like when she's in office, but if she really sticks to the campaign that she's running, or even sticks to like half of it, this is someone who actually will be that, who actually will be, I would even say a DeSantis 2.0. I would argue like probably will end up being in many ways even a better governor than DeSantis. And we need that. Like we know the importance of that. And frankly, considering how rare these opportunities come and how important it is to actually get solid governors in office who are willing to use power and wield power effectively to our ends, like I don't think the case for this is all that complicated. I think the case to make this the person for the race is very obvious. But again, the electability, we have to run the Neo. And it's very ironic because there's a lot of these people do claim to be like one of us. They claim to like they claim to be like populist and stuff like this. But these are people who will basically, and more or less compromise like every aspect of their actual beliefs, simply to have this false notion of electability, right? And so they can criticize rhinos, they can criticize the GOP establishment all they want, but I think really at the end of the day, these are people who will sell out our movement and everything else for more and more generations of just weak Republicans. And that's the issue. Like these people don't have actually any stones and any guts. Like in many ways, I would argue like these types of people are the people who form controlled opposition against our movement because they claim to in principle support our movement. But when it comes to actually kind of getting candidates into office who are aligned with us and who actually achieve our ends and not just be more controlled opposition from the GOP, these are people who get out and say, well, we can't do that because of electability, this and that. Yeah. How many generations have you been hearing that from the Republican establishment? And you are bringing up the same talking points as them. And you basically claim that you are anti-Republican establishment, but you continue to basically want to like vote in the Republican establishment. No, you're not. No, you're not. And like, look, this is not the California recall. This is not like a blue state or anything. We are talking about a state that a candidate like Kari Lake absolutely has a shot at winning. You know, it's absolutely within reach for us and within reach of a Trump-style candidate. And you are so scared, even of an attainable election. You are so scared of losing one election that you'll just sacrifice basically all principle for this false notion of electability. So when is it going to stop? When is the line for you? You know, because if we're going to sacrifice every single good candidate we could potentially have in the name of electability, what is the point of this movement? What is we're going to primary them all out? America first 2022. Yeah, it's all bullshit then. It is, you know? So, Noah Boyd says, I am the executive vice president of conservative gatekeeping. Who is the president? Does John count as the president? I know John likes to say that he is a lot of times. So, anyways, that was, like I said, that's only the start of this stream because, you know, that's something that like really just compelled me to make this stream because the utter lack of brain cells of this logic. And, you know, I think it also is a lack of understanding on the ground, right? This is when I say these people need to go outside, I don't just say that as like a generic talking point. I say that specifically because you look at something like this, like actually being in Arizona and talking to people in Arizona, they will tell you that Kari Lake, like I said, is a local celebrity, someone who is very popular and someone who is very liked. But these people, because they don't go outside and because they don't know things and because they don't know people, right? They only know of this margin of the 2018 election, right? They don't understand this. So it's like a genuine point. I'm not just saying that to insult you. I'm saying genuinely, you don't understand elections and you're not going to be able to understand the country you live in because you don't go outside and you don't get it. So please stop making electability arguments when you literally don't go outside because it's actually important. Like understanding people and understanding how people operate is actually pretty important to electoral politics. Which I guess is kind of you could say is kind of like antithetical because most of the strategist people tend to be total nerds and dorks, but there is some degree of human understanding that is needed. Okay, so John is the CEO. All right, John is the CEO. We love to see it. We love to see it. Carter Shaw says thoughts on Herschel Walker's son. Herschel Walker's son. I will say in defense of Herschel Walker on that comment. To my understanding, Herschel Walker and his wife are divorced. And I think the source of Herschel Walker's sons, you know, actually comes from the fact that, to my understanding, his mother took most of the custody of him. So he's basically raised by his mother, you know, which is, I'm not saying that as an exoneration of Herschel, but I think it's something to understand. Like he didn't raise Christian, right? Something to understand, something to take into account. So, you know, something to consider. All right. Anyways, the main topic I wanted to bring up in this is, well, let me actually go to Basement Caucus posting their L's so I can show you what I'm talking about here. These people, I mean, these Twitter accounts, man, they're utterly the worst. But let me see if I can let's just go through this a little bit, and then I can kind of hopefully find for you what I'm looking for here. Yep. Well, again, all right. Very fitting. Here's, as I bring up, and I was just like, I bet you Basement Caucus L's has exactly what I'm talking about. Of course they do. Okay. Me and Basement Caucus L's, we are vindicated. Okay. We are vindicated. We are one and the same in many ways. Not to say I run that account, because I genuinely don't. But so check. Oh, it's actually run by Brian Lewis. Oh, we love Brian Lewis. Brian Lewis is cool. But as you can see, and as you can probably draw context clues of just looking at the timeline, this is another big problem with the Basement Caucus. This is where I would say that, like, us, as you know, like we want to call ourselves the Sigma males of society, whatever. I would say this is the really big point where we, like our side, this fan base, you know, the collective fan bases of people like me, right? This is kind of where I would argue we diverge strongly from the Basement Caucus, okay? Because don't get me wrong, a lot of us are both online too much, okay? Now, I would argue our side has a lot more impulse control with the situation. Our side kind of understands it's a problem. Our side are the people who try to not be online perpetually, right? So, but like you could say like, oh, we're both like online internet people who like claim to be like kind of a more like dissident right in a way, right? But this really is the point where we diverge, is the fact that the Basement Caucus on Twitter specifically is insanely full of coomers, okay? Of coomers, well, let's just take a look. Let's just take a look. Okay, let's just take a look. So, you look at something like this. And, my thumbnail for the stream was actually quite accurate in a lot of ways. People were like, what does this mean? But like having just seen these people on Twitter, like it was very accurate. I had the anime body pillows. I had the subscription to Pornhub. I had, what else did I put? I had like the photo of Nikki Haley, right? I basically put together all the things that just make your stereotypical basement dwelling or basement caucus conservative, right? And so you look at stuff like this, just the utter horny posting, right? The utter horny posting of this is Miles Edgeworth. This is one such individual. He was in my replies today, basically explaining how anal sex was actually normal. And how there's nothing perfectly fine with anal sex, right? And stuff like this. I mean, we see it all over the place. Many such cases. I think you guys get the point. I don't know if I have to go through examples of this to prove what I'm talking about. We've talked about this many times. We've talked about some individuals on the Basement Caucus Twitter who, it's very interesting how they're the same people who they engage in these politics, right? And earlier, I guess we talked earlier about their politics and the flaws with their political strategy. But now we get to the personal side. We basically find that almost universally, these people physically cannot stop horny posting on the TL. Many of them share straight up hentai, share straight up pornographic material. And I'm not gonna, like, for your eyes, I'm not going to show that. And for YouTube guidelines, I won't show that either. But these are the types of people that we are talking about here. And it's a very interesting correlation, right? Why are the people who seemingly have like the dumbest logic and the worst politics also the people who are just not even simps, are just straight up horny all the time online? Well, we'll get to that in a second. Okay. And just to show, just to show you what I'm talking about here. You get comments like this, right? You get freaking nonsense like this. And looking at it, right? Let me also say that, just to understand, just so we can identify the Basement Caucus and know, looking at these people, that they're cringe. This is a very common theme that you see on Basement Caucus Twitter. It's either this or anime, right? This or anime. It's usually one or the other, but stuff like this, they'll LARP for some politician, they'll simp for some politician, some crappy politician too. It's always someone like Mike Lee. I think there's a Bill Lee fan out there. There's Nikki Haley fan, right? People like this, they'll simp for these types of politicians, and they'll put laser eyes on them. Okay, very very common theme to watch out for. It's common themes to watch out for here, folks. But you look at the utter state, right? You look at tweets like this. From our great friend Miles Edgeworth. He says, as a conservative, I'm all about conserving the natural beauty of America and humanity as a whole, like our historical sites and our natural wonders. MILFs are the epitome of America's natural beauty. Anyone who doesn't appreciate MILFs is a fake conservative. Now, you may think that's satirical. I think Rep can attest to this. Knowing Miles Edgeworth, we can tell you it's not actually a satirical statement. It is like 100% unironic here, folks. So, just the utter horny, like they literally physically cannot stop. All right. Many such cases, like many such cases, all the time, folks, all the time. And, you're not even seeing the worst of it. Okay. Because I would argue the very worst of it are the people who unironically just share like straight up hentai. Okay. Straight up hentai on their stuff all the time. Anyways. Now that I think we've kind of summarized that, now that I think we kind of, get the point on the problem here, let me make sure I haven't missed any super chats. Okay. No, I got Noah's already, so we're good. I would say, I was thinking about this because you look at people like Miles. Actually, as a matter of fact, let us kind of actually point one thing out about Miles. All right. not to pick on Miles, but he's been very obsessive in my comment section lately, so I think we actually do kind of have the authority to comment on this. You know, so you look at Miles, you look at how Miles identifies himself. So Miles is also someone, I'll point out in a second, but you know, you're someone who identifies themselves as a Barry Goldwater style paleo conservative. Again, here's another. I would argue, also a pretty big time commonality, right, of these people is, you know, like I said, the 16-year-old, I don't know how old a lot of these people are. A lot of these people, sadly, are probably in their 20s, which makes it even worse. But I like to imagine, for my own sake, that they're like 14, 15, or 16. So at least I can just say, well, they're just immature. Let's be honest, most of them probably are adults, right? But this political LARPing, basically, of just throwing a bunch of words together to make like one ideology, right? Like, you know what I'm talking about. I'm a Reagan capitalist libertarian, you know, like let's just like throw together a bunch of words like for no reason. I'm a fusionist syndicalist, you know, and then sometimes you have politicians or philosophers. I'm a fusionist syndicalist, Ludwig von Mises, like, you know, just like they'll just throw stuff together, stuff like this, you know. It doesn't actually make sense. Like a lot of times they just like make shit up basically with ideologies, but it's a LARP, right? It's all a LARP. The one thing I did want to point out about that is, you know, people who this is the problem, I think, because these are people, like I said, a lot of the time. Now, some of these people literally just like proudly admit to be neocons. Like I know you have people like Bill Lee fan, Nikki Haley fan, and they'll say like proud neoconservative, or like that guy, what's that guy, Politics Jack, right? He's all about like I'm pretty sure he has like he just like will probably admit to be a neoconservative. But you also have people like that. Right? You have people like that who call themselves a Barry Goldwater paleo conservative, and you have other people who actually identify themselves as like right-wing populists, like pro-Trump and stuff like that. And they're out here doing the horny posting, right? They're out here sharing literal pornography on their timelines. And it's a very interesting phenomenon, right? People who like public, and let me just say on the concept of being, let me just say real quick, the concept of a Barry Goldwater paleo conservative is literally like antithetical to itself. Like it literally makes no sense, because I know that the term kind of gets shifted up, mixed around a lot of times, but most easily understood what paleo conservatism is. What do we know the root word of it? Paleo just means old, right? Older from back then. So paleo conservatism is old conservatism. Okay. Old conservative, what we generally consider in America to be the quote unquote old right is that which was before World War II. So if you're calling yourself a paleo conservative, basically by definition, and this is the definition that I think we all need to just like this, because this is what it actually means. And this is what we need to basically come together and understand. A paleo conservative is more or less basically a pre-World War II conservative. You are a paleo conservative if your beliefs align with that of those who consider themselves to be the conservatives before World War II. A neoconservative, like I get it, supposedly we consider the disaffected liberals of the 60s to be neocons. I would just argue most easily to understand a neoconservative is again a new conservative. So these are people who basically embody post-war conservatism. Okay. Now, Barry Goldwater, the Barry Goldwater's political legacy essentially was being the first candidate to really platform the concept of fusionism. Now, fusionism by definition is a form of neoconservatism. It is new conservatism because it is an idea, you know, William F. Buckley, the founder of the National Review, it was basically kind of his idea, his concept of bringing together kind of the real conservatives, like the actual conservatives, but as they define them to be the social traditionalists, right? Fusionism was the fusing of the social traditionalists with the libertarians. And so that's where you get the concept of like conservatarianism, right? That's where you get the concept of small government conservatism, right? Stuff like this. But it's important to understand, you know, that is not like traditionally like the way people saw things, right? This is again something where William Buckley again in the early 60s said, hey, these two sides should come together. Now Barry Goldwater is very famous because Goldwater was the first candidate to run on that platform of fusionism. Obviously he was not successful, but he influenced Reagan, who would, you know, mainstream it, make it the thought. But that's all to say Barry Goldwater and fusionism are by nature not not paleoconservative. By nature, by definition, they are neoconservative. It is a new concept. It is still, relatively speaking, a new form of conservatism. Just to point that out, that you're actually wrong, and what you're saying just by like definition doesn't make any sense. You can't be a Barry Goldwater style paleoconservative, right? You could just say you're a Barry Goldwater conservative if you don't want to call yourself a neoconservative. I would argue Barry Goldwater wasn't even a conservative at all, but still, you have these people co-opting the term of what it means to be a paleoconservative, an old conservative, and saying, oh, I'm a new conservative, I'm a neoconservative, but I'm actually a paleoconservative. You see the problem here? But I would say, let me point out kind of the universal theme here, right? The universal theme I notice in these people is fundamentally they are entirely atheist, because that is when they frankly get the most mad at us. Anytime we talk at all about regulating social morality, they say we're just trying to impose Christianity on people, right? Anytime we bring up Christianity, they just say, oh, it's not relevant to the movement or whatever it is. And look, I assume, and I'm pretty sure we have a bunch of non-Christians viewing this stream right now, and non-Christians who are supporters right now. But the reason why I bring up the fact that they are basically universally atheist is the fact that I think this is the problem. This is the problem. And if we're to presuppose that our belief in Christ is basically what forms the sort of moral, social, culturally traditional, right, framework of that side of our movement, this is what happens when you strip that away. The Christian foundation, right? This is what happens when you mix right-wing populism, quote unquote, right, with with atheism, right? But you take away the Christianity, which and look, I get it. There's actually a lot of atheists who manage to be trad, and they actually agree with us on social issues. But this, primarily speaking, like this side of end of the internet, this sort of end of our movement is led, and it's kind of coalesced ideologically by a bunch of Christians. On the other hand, their side of the thing, their sort of ideas, their sort of collection of leadership, and their collection of just all the stuff that comes together is coalesced by a bunch of hardcore atheists. Now, do you see the difference? You see what basically happens? And I would argue that that's the real problem with Basement Caucus Twitter. When you try to combine, the 2016 right-wing populist kind of messaging with atheist social liberalism, you get things like this. You get things like people out here sharing hentai and promoting gay marriage and gay sex and all these things, right? Openly like this, okay, on the TL, right? But they'll say things like, I'm against free trade, I like Donald Trump, let's get rhinos out of office, but I'm going to coom to anime girls all day long. Do you see what I'm saying? This is exactly what happens. This is exactly what happens when you try to, make conservatism in general, but especially our side of conservatism, I would argue, especially, this is what happens when you try to strip away our Christian foundation from that end of the movement. That's not to say that, to caucus with us, to be with us, you have to be Christian, because I think there's a lot of secular people who still get it, but that is to say it needs to be a movement that is still led off of a Christian foundation, because when you take away that foundation, what do you end up with? You end up with, like I said, anti-free trade, anti-big tech, sometimes anti-immigration, stuff like this, but with a total lack of any sense of social whatever, right? And so these are the people, and we got a super chat. Let me read this real quick. Noah Boyd says, thanks for the history lesson. Learned a lot. You're welcome, King. You're so welcome, King. That's actually one of my favorite things to talk about, because I think it's really important to, because, you get from these small government types a lot. It's like, but conservatism is about small government and the NAP and stuff like this. And I'm like, no, it's really isn't, right? And then, they'll try to say, well, okay, well, your definition of conservatism is just simply the conservation of tradition and order and hierarchy and stuff like this. But it is traditional in America for this, and that. And it's like, no, fusionism is not traditional in America, right? It's by definition, it is new, right? And something else important to point out is the fact that, I guess the counter to that probably would be, the counter to our definition of conservatism, which is the real definition of conservatism, not some abstract ideology about small government. No, the conservatism by definition is just simply the conservation of tradition. Like, that's it, right? The conservation of that which we've had, aka tradition. Now, oftentimes libertarian types will try to come up, and I know I'm going off topic, but to, kind of add to your super chat, libertarian types will try to bring up the fact that, well, isn't it technically tradition in America for like freedom and like individual liberty and small government and stuff like this? And I will concede to an extent that's true. But keep in mind this: when we talk about the traditional American society, I think there is this libertarian fantasy that's not reality. That basically America before FDR was elected, America was this libertarian paradise where anyone could do whatever they wanted, and we had freedom and we had rights and this and that. And then when FDR took power, he expanded the government. And now we have no freedom and no natural rights and stuff like this. The traditional American society actually had way more laws regulating specifically Christian morality, way more than we do now. So that's important to understand. When we talk about preserving the traditional American society, that's what we mean. Not necessarily just abstract principles of John Locke. No, we mean like the way Americans traditionally have lived. And, the traditional in traditional America, there were laws against sodomy, right? There were laws against, there were way more morally regulating laws in traditional America than we have now. Sure, it was true that the national debt was lower and that, fiscally speaking, the taxes were lower, stuff like that. That's true. I can see that. To be honest, I'm not even opposed to that. But if you want to talk about social issues specifically, people try to say, well, but, look at our founding fathers and stuff like this. No, it is the truth that on moral issues, on social issues, traditional America was far more overbearing, was far more of a moral majority than it is now, and so keep that in mind, right? In traditional America, which is what we believe in, not in small government principle. We believe in traditional America. In traditional America, marriage is between man and a woman. Okay. And, that's something that, the people got even Miles Edgeworth got pissed at this. It's something that the Basement Caucus got very pissed at, right? When the APU tweeted out that marriage is between a man and a woman, right? But it is. And if you understand conservatism, you understand that, but this is traditional American society, right? Traditional American society was not this libertarian paradise where it was just culturally accepted that anyone could do what they wanted. No. And like I said, it is true that concepts like rugged individualism and sort of a limited role fiscally of the government and stuff like this, yes, was that also present in like pre-FDR, pre-World War II sort of America? Of course it was. But in terms of moral issues, in terms of social issues, also important to point out, America has been protectionist on trade for most of its history. So, libertarianism owned yet again. But, on social issues, America used to be very, very strict, and people conflate the idea, just read basically what the founders wrote about freedom and assume that just applied to, abortion and gay marriage and stuff like this. It's not how traditional America viewed it. So important to point out. Easy Legendary says there's no such thing as traditional marriage. There is only marriage, and it's between a man and a woman. That's a great point. Actually, Kongman Lee tweeted that out the other day, and it's true. It's true. We all need to decondition ourselves from even saying traditional marriage, because it literally is just marriage. Like it's literally the only point of marriage. Anyways, I don't even remember what I was talking. What was I even talking about before that super chat? I think I was talking about how they're all coomers and stuff like that, right? Okay, yeah, but that's basically that's the issue, right? Like I said, when you combine like the anti-establishment sentiment, when you combine vaguely right-wing populism, like I said, with a lack of Christian foundation, right? And these people hate it. These people hate it when we talk about anything related to Christianity, or even anything that implies the regulation and to some extent of like Christian moral law, right? They hate it. And like I said, that's the problem. When you try to combine the sort of parts of our movement with just straight up godless social liberalism, like, this is just what happens. This is what you get. Like I said, you get, I like Josh Hawley. I'm against free trade. We should have immigration restriction. Here's hentai on the TL. It's sad to see. And these people also don't get it. You know, they also try to say, well, isn't the problem these XYZ political issues? Okay, why do you think XYZ political issues exist? Like literally, why do you think they exist? They exist specifically because of the crap that you engage in, right? The left-wing social movement to degrade tradition, to degrade hierarchy, to inverse basically human nature, right? And to more or less make the population addicted to the very vices that you are just proudly engaging in and defending, right? This is exactly why we have the political issues that we have today. Do you somehow think they are disconnected? You know, do you somehow think addicting society to porn and normalizing, you know, treating non-straight relationships as if they are like basically morally equivalent to straight relationships, right? You know, do you not think that those have anything to do with the destruction of the family structure, which has real political effects in society? Of course it does. I mean, seriously, like, it's not hard to understand. Do you think hookup culture, which you celebrate, which you glorify, even though you clearly don't even engage in it yourself because you can't, like, I'm just saying that right now, but it's like, but you still defend anyway because you're just that horny, right? Do you think that is somehow disconnected from the breakdown of these family structure? They are one and the same. Like it's not complicated to understand this stuff, but you know, you want to have the populism, the anti-rhino sentiment, and you want to have that and try to like combine your Barry Goldwater style paleoconservatism with you know, with cultural liberalism. It doesn't work. They're antithetical to each other. So anyways, let me check super chat. Chat and Revolt says, I mean, Lucifer. That's cringe. That is very cringe. But he admits that this is a Christian nation. Thank you very much. Thank you very much for admitting that. But you know, you really should not be that. We need to start farming our own food again. Yeah, the farm right and the farm right added here. So you know, that sums up the Basement Caucus. There honestly is more to be said, but I don't know how much I want to really give these people attention, but you know, that's basically what you have here, you know, and we've talked about this before. Listen, porn addiction is a real problem. You know, it's something I think basically every single teenage boy either has struggled with and has overcome, you know, through the grace of God, or is still struggling with. But that doesn't take away from the fact, well, actually, if anything, it actually adds to the fact that it needs to be recognized as a huge problem. Okay, it is something that is destroying men, and it is something that is destroying relationships. It is something that is destroying Sorry, I just had a total brain freeze there. It is something that is destroying society, is what I meant to say. I don't know what I was trying to say. And we know this to be the case, right? And look, we probably, most of you guys have all seen the dissertation and stuff like that. Like, you get it, right? But that is exactly why, you know, and I'll reiterate my stance on this, as I've said before. You know, I am compassionate and I am graceful and I am nothing but understanding and caring towards people who do have this problem and are trying to overcome it and are trying to, like, you know, deal with sin and deal with vice and overcome it. Like, you know what? Like, you have my sympathy. We're cheering for you. The boys are all with you, right? But to the people like this who just defend it, who you know, just try to act like it's okay, try to act like it's normal, and try to also act like it's inherently conservative, you people, I mean, my opinion of you is just frankly not high at all. Like, I genuinely have a horrible opinion of you. Like, it's very true. And it's very interesting too. You know, I always notice too, typically the Basement Caucus is most angered, right? They are most upset when we do something like criticize porn or criticize, you know, loose casual sex, things like this. You notice most of the time, this is what these people get the most pissed at. To be honest, it's usually porn. You know, you can talk about other political issues, but whenever we go after porn, whenever we say stuff like porn is bad, porn should be made illegal, this or that, you know, that's actually typically when you get the harshest responses from these people, right? Notice the response too. Just a highlight, right? The fact that they're literally just proving us right. The response you usually get from the Basement Caucus, you will always notice this. It is a universal rule. You know, if they're not if they don't accept that they have a problem, they will always react like this. You notice that the response you get from the Basement Caucus isn't just like, "Oh, I disagree. You know, you're wrong. Here's why you're wrong." Like, you don't get like kind of a normal political response. No, the response you will always get when you criticize porn from these people, the response you will always get is a response that is extremely aggressive and angry and like no holds. Like they are pissed, and you can visibly see that they're pissed. You can always see in their dictation, and a lot of times in real life too, that they get extremely defensive, like extremely, extremely defensive. You know what that is? That is literally the coping behavior of an addict. You feel that natural defensiveness you get when we talk about, this one political issue as compared to other issues, and you're like, banning porn? No, you can't do that. Like, what are you, dictator? What are you, a fascist, bro? Like, you know what I mean? Like that response, you see that instinctual response just comes out of you. Yeah. That's not something that happens to a normal person. It's not something that comes out of the mouth of a normal person. That is something, like I'm going to say, that comes out of the mouth of an addict, okay? That is a symptom of addiction. You see this is the same exact thing when you criticize weed in front of a pothead. I would argue it's very similar when you criticize abortion in front of a girl who is presumptuous, right? Like you will see this natural reaction, and it is a reaction of, you have a problem. So, saying no to naked lady is literally 1984. I know that's basically, you understand, to them it is, right? To them it is, because they are so, I think when people are so addicted to one vice like that, you try to rationalize it, and you try to say, well, it's just me being free. It's me having fun, quote unquote. No, it's not. It's you actually destroying yourself, and you actually frying your own dopamine receptors. But anyways. Cowboy 69 Deluxe says, I think all porn should be like the C version, where it's illegal and hard to get. Sure, there will be thousands of viewers, but that's better than millions watching it. Yeah, that's my take on it too. I 100% agree. We have a Jim Eagle in chat. Where is Jim Eagle? Oh, we got Jim Eagle in chat. Let's go. Look where Live and Let Live has got us. Not so great anymore. Well, that's exactly the issue, right? That's exactly the issue. Is that specifically the so-called populist side of Basement Caucus Twitter, they inherently sort of understand that, like, you have to use governmental power, and so they'll take Trumpian stances on some things, but their moral framework, I think that's really the problem, is that their moral framework is so off, it's so skewed, it's so inherently not conservative that you'll get this stuff. You'll get this stuff like, porn is free speech, coming from people who consider themselves to be based Trump conservatives, And of course, we know there's also like a neoliberal, neocon side to Basement Caucus Twitter. We expect nothing less from them. But to the people who consider themselves to like kind of be more, I'm a populist, I'm a I'm a Barry Goldwater paleo conservative. Well, that's the problem. You're a Barry Goldwater paleo conservative. That's exactly the problem. Barry Goldwater, the guy who supported abortion and social liberalism. That's our guy right there. No, okay. But anyways, folks, we've been talking. That was about an hour on the Basement Caucus. So with that being said, we're going to do the normal, which is begin interacting with chat. Let's have a little bit of fun with chat right now. So let's do it. And if you want me to flesh out certain opinions on the Basement Caucus, you're more than happy to do that. But the floor is yours. If you want a guaranteed answer, as usual, you can always send in a super chat. If not, I might get to your question. I will choose. When you don't send super chats, it's up to me to choose. So, Red Eagle Politics says, why won't they watch pixelated woman on a screen for their own gratification when they could just wash dishes at Red Lobster? So instead, what did Red Eagle mean by this? Only me and John Doyle know what Red Eagle meant by this, okay? But it's true. It's true, I somehow have more respect. I honestly have more respect for that guy than I do for Coomers, because at least he's sort of honest about it, right? At least he's not, coping to a screen about it. Jose Rodriguez says, please explain. I don't know. Should we explain? Rep, do you think we should explain the lore behind this? I don't know. I don't know if we should. It is. I don't know if it's even like non-esoteric enough to really like bring this up, but DK says, since she was mentioned in the chat, I will say that Kari Lake was Arizona's top news anchor, exactly, who has been dealing with character assassination since she started posting more right-leaning stuff. Well, like, again, anyone who runs for office in a swing state as a Republican is going to face a pretty big character assassination. But, look, someone like Kimberly Yee, who gets a character assassination, it's like nobody knows who this person is. So they're more inclined to believe it than someone who's built his reputation over like 40 years and is being attacked by like partisan media. That's something to understand. It's something like keep in mind here, So everyone is addicted to dopamine, sugar, screen points, porn. Delayed gratification is needed. No, it's true. It's true. We all need to work on it, folks. We all need to work on it. So I'm not saying I'm perfect, and I'm not saying any of us are perfect. What I despise and absolutely abhor are when people, instead of acknowledging it, instead of acknowledging that they are flawed, instead of acknowledging that this is something they need to work on and overcome, instead, they just make excuses for it. And even better yet, they justify it and they somehow try to say it's okay. Literally the worst. Anyways, we got more super chats. Matt says, I drove to Denny's and ate the whole kitchen. So you got Denny's. Real American does that with Culver's every day. It's very interesting. I think it's time. I think I need to drive to my local Vietnamese or Chinese restaurant and do the same. How was Delaware? Sad I missed it. Delaware was fun. It was a very short trip, to be honest, but it was a good. We had a good time. We had a bit of fun. It was nice. Staying up until 5 a.m. watching one of the greatest YouTube channels on earth. It was very interesting with the boys. It was a good time. That's a fake. Oh, it's a fake account. Okay. All right, we got the dude. Imagine making fakes. It's one thing to make like fake accounts of like actual content creators. Matt's just like a super chatter. Matt's just kind of like a member of the community. And you guys, Red Eagles fans are out here making fake accounts of Matt. You guys are a little. I bet you it's someone from the Basement Caucus making literally posting this too, man. So, anyways, he sent me money, so I'll accept it. You're not getting it back. Oh, you want a refund? Psych. Not getting that. We have an epidemic of vices in this country. It's so true. So true. Speaking of Delaware, Washington didn't cross the Delaware River so that these people could be addicted to touching their pee-pee. Literally the case. Literally the case. That is like making a fake account of John Doyle. That dude doesn't even upload. His upload schedule has been better, right? Pretty sure it has, at least. All right, let's see what we got here. These people thinking Kari Lake is bad. Her opposition, Katie Hobbs, is a literal lunatic and thinks she can win. And I don't know much about Katie Hobbs, but if it is true that she's a lunatic, I mean, literally, then the whole electability argument is out of the case, because if out of the picture, because if you're making the argument basically that, just run a Republican and you'll win, why not run the best Republican? It's exactly that, right? It's exactly the Basement Caucus, pseudo-intellectuals, low T, middle IQ accounts, like we said, these people claim to be sometimes they try to think they're based, but, if you're out here, literally not, literally just refusing to actually engage in any type of real America First wave into Congress. I mean, seriously, what do you? How are you? How are you authentic in any of this stuff, John? Quality over quantity. That's true to an extent. See, John has like the following where he can get away with that. I think once you build up your following, then you can really like you can really get away with good stuff like that. But I think when you're still small, you have to actually be consistent in a lot of ways. And John isn't uploading as much anymore because the 627 commission has reconvened. True. Nobody knows what we meant by this. We're just throwing in inside jokes all over the chat base. American Populist Crusade, since John typically announces his videos and then is late releasing them, you should steal one of his ideas and then post it before him. It would be funny. I think I have done that once, actually. Let me try to. I think I did that with Afghanistan. Actually, I think I don't. Now, to be fair, it was like Afghanistan, so it wasn't a topic that was like super big in the news or anything. I mean, the opposite. It's like everyone was making content about that. But I think we have done that once. I'm trying to think if there's another time we did that. I remember like doing that once, and it was kind of funny. Noah Boyd says watch Nathaniel Abbott videos with commentary. Should we do that? Should we watch Badan's videos with commentary? I haven't watched Badan's videos recently. I gotta check them out. Be sure to subscribe to Nathaniel Abbott, by the way. Cowboy Deluxe says, yeah, you pretty much stole John's take for lol. Unironically, on Afghanistan, not the case, because I actually posted mine before his. So if anything, I actually have never seen his Afghanistan video, but if anything, he stole mine. But I think in many ways, we both kind of just stole Pat Buchanan's take on the issue because, that's he was kind of the first person to say that stuff. Wasn't John on an IG live stream with Kai? Yes, I believe so. I don't know. Red Lion Politics says, I for sure don't steal Red Eagles takes. It's called we do a little bit of stealing takes. Unironically, though, politics in many ways is about repetition. So, I'm not entirely anti-stealing takes. You kind of want to be original, but there also do need to be like literally people who will just parrot everything you say in some ways because, like I said, politics is about repetition. It's basically the art of repetition, and so you need to like drill ideas home, right? So. Noah Boyd says, do the fat and sad video. Perhaps we will check it out. Vince, do you want Trump to win in 2024? Of course, folks, of course. Ponce of Columbia says, Vince, check your Twitter DMs. All right, what am I checking my Twitter DMs for? I don't see any Twitter DMs in like the last week or so I don't know. I only see group chats, but oh, interesting. So Kimberly Yee has a relationship, I guess, to Barry Goldwater. Is that what you're trying to show me? Oh, of course. I knew it. I knew we couldn't trust this woman. Comes from the Barry Goldwater line of politics. Of course she does. Oh, but it's Arizona. You need that. No, you don't. But you don't, though. The Goldwater McCain dynasty is dead. It's not relevant anymore. And if you want to talk about legacy in Arizona, Kari Lake still has a bigger legacy. But you know what she doesn't have? An ideological line of thinking from fusionist to McCainite, neocon trash forming her agenda. Okay. Red Lion says, I regret endorsing Kimberly Yee. Yeah, you should. You better walk that back, Red Lion. I'll be watching. I will be watching your Twitter feed to ensure that you walk that back. So Vince, you should watch the Carter Shaw show but you people, mass recommending this, okay? Mass recommending things for me to watch. This is not supposed to be watching time. This is supposed to be, Arizona is a neocon state. Literally not the case. Like, just because they've had prominent politicians, come from be neocons. Yeah. Is that not the case with a lot of states? Pre Ron DeSantis and pre Trump was the Florida GOP a populist GOP? No, it was not. It's such a bad talking point. And, I think the one number you need to understand why that's just simply not true. 2020 election. So it's the same exact election, same exact, not just national environment, same exact statewide environment. Donald Trump ran ahead of Martha McSally. Martha McSally being someone who was a neocon from that Arizona GOP sort of political dynasty. Like, it's not hard to understand this, folks. It's not hard to take this into account. Like, it's literally just not the case. Exactly, right? It's like that is like saying only a neocon can win Mississippi because our representatives are neocons. Yeah. And also important to understand, Arizona is full of a lot of Midwestern transplants, right? That's a big part of the new migration into Arizona too. So it's really just not true that it is. And I think there's a large amount of just a conservative base who will vote for any Republican down there, And I think I don't think it's necessarily like, look at a state like Florida, how they've become the state of like Trump and DeSantis, And I don't think the voters here are to some degree maybe, but I don't think the voters here are particularly all that different from the Republican voters are particularly all that different from another red state. It's more so just that they're not fundamentally opposed to it, and then we kind of just took control, right? We kind of just took control and said, this is what the Florida GOP is all about, and most conservatives went along with it, and they kind of liked it, because they're like, hey, we're actually winning, we're actually doing things, I like this, I'm down with this, Same thing in Missouri. I mean, you think Josh Hawley, Josh Hawley is just someone who is like, oh, I'm a Republican, I'm a conservative, and they voted for him because of that. And then look at now we associate the Missouri GOP with like being a populist GOP. It's like, very important to take into account. So, but then again, you look at a state like Arizona, most of the conservatives there are just generic R voters, like generic conservative voters who will basically vote Republican regardless. There is a pretty strong Trump base of support there too. And then you combine that with the fact that a lot of the transplants coming from other states are from the Midwest. Arizona is not a neocon state, Of course, the McCain dynasty still has some influence there, but, the same way Bush influences Texas, If anything, I would say the Bush dynasty has a bigger influence on Texas. And Texas, I don't think is not a state that is only up for grabs for neocons. It's simply the fact that, America First people, right-wing populist people, paleocon just have to make an attempt, right? You have to actually make a concerted attempt to do it. And so Kari Lake, just as Trump and Ron DeSantis did in the span of like 2 or 3 years, Kari Lake has the potential to totally rewrite that narrative that it's a neocon state and totally change the concept of what it means to be a conservative Republican in that state. But you have to try, like someone has to actually go in and move the Overton window in that state and kind of redefine things in the same way that you look at the Republican Party pre-Trump, post-Trump, where most of the people who were like just Lolbert Tea Party people before it came around to Trump, right? Someone has to actually go in and just basically change the consensus. And that's really all there is to it. Like I don't think people understand this. So, with that being said, you look at the kind of the way things are set up in Arizona, it's definitely not a state that's destined to be a neocon state, And if it were the case, again, why does Martha McSally keep getting her ass kicked in the state? It's not difficult. It's not difficult. Thoughts on replacing Crenshaw? I don't think we're going to do it. I would kind of like to see it, to be honest. I'm kind of down for it, but, that is something that is more, it's just like it's a suburban district specifically, So that's something you could make the case more so that's like a destined to be neocon district because it's just something that's like very like purple overall, right? But even so, I really don't. It doesn't really excuse any of his behavior, any of his nonsense. He could just be like a normal run-of-the-mill Republican. Instead, he chooses to counter signal us constantly. So I still don't see an excuse for that. You know, if you're going to be that type of speech, just fly under the radar, just be kind of a run-of-the-mill normal Republican. Instead, he has to be a guy who's different. I counter signal, then you don't have my respect and you don't have my endorsement. So the video maker says, what are your thoughts on Arizona Senate candidate Blake Masters? He's great. He's solid. I don't think people understand this. It's like, Arizona's a neocon state because, the people keep just voting for whoever the Republican nominee is. Kari Lake and Blake Masters literally have the opportunity to basically rewrite that, to basically do in Arizona like an even better version of kind of what you saw in Florida with the influence of Trump and Ron DeSantis. Like, it'd be even better. It'd be even better, I'd argue, because I think Kari Lake and Blake Masters overall are even like more solid on a lot of the issues, right? In Arizona, assuming they win, which I think they have just as good a chance as winning as anyone, Arizona could basically become like a state that is seen like Florida. Like, oh, look at the GOP there. It's based. Like, they're full of like all you have to do, though, what you have to actually do to rewrite that script and rewrite that narrative is you have to actually try, And the fact of the matter is, when Blake Masters becomes the Republican senator of Arizona and when Kari Lake becomes the Republican governor of Arizona, those are the two people who are going to set the tone of the Arizona Republican Party, the Arizona RNC, and they're going to be the people who get to define what it means to be a Republican in that state. So people keep saying, but McCain, but Ducey, this and that. Okay, do you understand? Like, people have very short memories. People go with the flow more than you recognize. Literally just let them take power, give them power, and they can genuinely move the Overton window. They can genuinely redefine what it means to be in that state. Like, the identity that Florida now has, hold on, I gotta switch out my camera battery, but the identity that Florida now has, like, this is not something that has been here forever, right? We've not always been like this. It was the fact that you had, obviously the influence of like Trump basically, making a big deal of the state, reclassifying his residency here, and then kind of DeSantis kind of solidifying it. That is why, Florida now has the reputation that it does. It wasn't just that, well, it's just inherently what the people here are like. No, actually, Republicans more or less basically had to take action, right? They had to like win elections. They had to go out and do things. They had to actively move the Overton window to the point where now you associate Florida with what? You associate Florida with actually kind of being the Republican state that isn't perfect, but that tends to like actually be more willing to take action, right? Kind of proactive action, kind of better at getting stuff done, especially when it comes to lockdowns and mask mandates and stuff like this, right? Again, that's not something that Florida was destined to be, because in many ways you could argue Florida was a neocon state before. All it took was the right candidates winning in that state to basically shift the Overton window of what the kind of identity of a conservative was in that state. So it's such a null talking point, in my opinion. Like, it's such a bad talking point. Well, because of John McCain, that means we can never have a Trump style conservative ever run in Arizona. Seriously? Well, because of Jeb Bush, we can never have a Trump-style conservative win in Florida. Oh, wait, there you go. Or with Texas or with any of these places. It's just like, it's such a stupid talking point. No, I don't think people understand this, especially on the statewide level. You have the power to rewrite the identity of conservative. Now, if it's the case that you just don't have enough like standard Republican voters in that state or in that district, then maybe we have to talk about a different strategy. But if you basically have the Republican numbers more or less to win, and you kind of got it, right? It's not complicated. It's really not. Like, you actually have the ability to shift things however you want, and this is like we talk about, especially look at like deep red states, a state like, I know Carter was bringing up Mississippi. States like Mississippi, Alabama, Tennessee, these only have neocon Republican parties because that's who runs. That's who wins and takes office in those places. You put in a solid candidate and you will, and the voters there will go along with it. Like, do people not understand this? You also combine that with the fact, again, that it's especially look at someone like Blake Masters, who is kind of his identity is sort of like, populism, right? Demographically speaking, Arizona is getting a lot of Midwestern transplants. Like, this is something that works down there, but it's a neocon state. It's a neocon state because of John McCain and, suburban voters. And so therefore we have to run a bunch of like fiscal conservative social liberal people. And that's the only people that are destined to win in Arizona. No, you actually have the power to kind of rewrite the identity there. So let me go through chat. Let's check out chat here, folks. It's called we do a little bit of reading chat. Let's do a little bit of reading chat. Thoughts on Louisiana? I've never actually been to Louisiana. I might go to an LSU game this year. I'm not sure. We have to see. We're not decided on that yet. That is a possibility. So if any of you guys go to LSU, I might come out. I don't know. I'm just letting you. I might. I don't know if I will. I might come out for a game. Okay. So. Oh, so true. So true. Arizona is a neocon state, yet it elects guys, the Republican base, especially in those states, elects guys like Paul Gosar and Andy Biggs. Yeah. Neocon state right there. Okay. Okay, buddy. But the independent voters in Arizona like John McCain. Yeah, they like Kari Lake too. Kari Lake is a folk hero in Arizona in the same sense that John McCain is. You people, man. If you want to say it's all about culture, like dude, John McCain is a cultural icon. Yeah, so is Kari Lake in Arizona. The other state. Marsha Blackburn endorsed populism. That's actually pretty cool. She's not the worst senator. I don't know. I wouldn't put her like top tier, but if she's saying that, that's not bad. We like to see that. McCain was only conservative at election time. So true. John McCain and Jeff Flake have some of the worst approval ratings aside from what McConnell normally gets. Yeah. Arizona is such a neocon state that Jeff Flake literally had to retire because he knew he wasn't going to get reelected because it's a neocon state. Such bad talking points, to be honest. Trump endorsed Lake 8 minutes ago. No, it was long before 8 minutes ago. Vince, we need Ho Chi Minh emojis. Disavow. We're gonna get Julius Caesar emojis. Do you not understand this? Okay. My Italian heritage matters too. Okay. So. What are your thoughts on Mark Brnovich? He's terrible. He's absolutely terrible. I'm going to a game You're going to an LSU game this weekend, based. Actually, that's the Auburn game. Aren't they playing Auburn this weekend? That'll be a good game. I know both teams are kind of like, but that'll actually be a really good game. We are excited to see that. But Dan said you were Ho Chi Minh on my show. I understand. Look, I understand. This is the joke. Okay, this is big funny, but it's not really the case. I'm Southern Vietnamese. It's different. I'm what's his name? Hold on. Need to look him up. Don't know my own family's history that well. So sad. South Vietnamese president. Yeah. State should have beaten LSU, but Mike Leach won't run. Sad. I didn't watch that game, but you guys were playing from behind, so I don't know if running the ball is necessarily the move. Vietnamese vote majority Republican. No, they do. You should Real Americans website is looking clean. You should all check it out. Yes, sir. Be sure to go check out the Real American website. South Vietnamese fought harder than the Afghanistan army. No, it's true. Now, that's not to say they fought hard, because they really didn't. But they did put up a better fight than the Afghan army. We got to give them that, right? They actually held out for a few years at least, not 11 days. Right? Is Buddhism based? No, Buddhism is cringe. And I'm like, I have family who are Buddhists, but it's, I mean, like philosophically, I would argue the religion doesn't even really make sense. And even more importantly, I don't think it really actually like gives any like moral framework or guidance, like practically speaking, on how to actually like live life. It's just, I don't know. I'm really not a fan of Buddhism, and that's coming as someone who kind of grew up around Buddhism. You know, yeah. A big part of it is resisting your urges and stuff. I mean, true, but not for like. A big part of it is resisting everything. You know, like a true Buddhist is someone who basically like starves themselves too. Like, you know what I mean? Like that's kind of the way they want you to live your life. And, you know, I think that it's just, especially with no like proper purpose, which Buddhism doesn't really provide, you know, it's not really, it's kind of all over the place, to be honest. Buddha abandoned his freaking family. He ditched his wife and kids in the middle of the night. Yeah, it's true. He did. And he's kind of like the prophet of a lot of parts of Asia. Not good. Vince, the next APU event, when? We'll probably be having one in Arizona in December. So will the APU ever do an event in Alabama? I don't know. I'll probably be in Florida if it's back here, which could be a driving distance for you. I'm not exactly sure which part of Alabama. Actually, you have to drive across Georgia, though, so I don't know how close it really is. But Vince, now thoughts on socialists winning in Germany? The Social Democrats won, and the Greens got 15%. The AFD, the real conservatives, only got 10. I don't know much about Western European politics. I will say that really does make the case for why, at least in the modern day, maybe not historically, but in the modern day, Eastern Europe is the move. Not the Western Europe is cringe. Eastern Europe is based. It's the case. It is the case. Bro, Arizona is too far. Well, look, last event was on the East Coast. This event's going to be on the West Coast, okay? Vince Dow, I declare Vince Dow our glorious, dear, supreme leader of America. Based, I am going to be the next Caesar. It's true. It's true. Vince, what are your thoughts on Coptic Christians? I don't know much about them. Isn't it, I don't know much about the Coptic Church, to be honest. Other than I know of its existence, but I don't know much about their practices or theology or anything. When will APU have a Midwestern event? At some point. Okay, at some point. It will happen. We are the American Populist Union. Most of our members are from the Midwest. It's gonna happen. Probably next year. Thoughts on Louisiana? You already asked this question, dude. You already asked this question. Vince, do more fan meetups? I don't know. Maybe we'll do one in Orlando or something. I do live pretty close to Orlando, so maybe we should do that. Doyle is having dinner with Alex Jones? No way. What the? I have to verify this for myself. That's epic. I want to have dinner with Alex Jones. No, let me ensure that is really happening. Oh, let's go. That's epic. That's actually cool. Check his story. Yes, it is. Z says, what's the best way to reach you? Insta isn't working. Okay, when's the last time you messaged me? You can just send me a second message. I probably just missed your thing. Mr. What's your Insta? It's Monsieur, isn't it? If not, you can always get my Snapchat. It's the same username as my Instagram if you want. Put the story on screen. I looked at it on my phone, dude. Just look at it yourself. You can do that too, you know. To be honest, if I had dinner with Alex Jones, Insta isn't working for you at all. Okay, then you can just snap Or you can just ask one of the APU guys for my number, because I can't say it in live chat, obviously, but you can just give it to them. Only Vince Dow can get a higher minority vote, a high white working class turnout vote. It's so true. And a high majority white suburban vote without compromising any AF values at the same time. It's so true. It's so true. But I can't run for office because it would just simply be unfair. I could literally be unfair. I'd run and I'd literally just end the United States because it would just be so unfair. So, we must maintain balance in nature. I'm just kidding. What am I, a Buddhist? But unironically, Vince, dox your phone number. No, I'm not going to dox my phone number. Who do you think I am? Who do you think I am? Not going to do that. Hey, Vince, tell Chandler Crump you said hey. I will. Bryce Pitts. Okay, I will remember to tell him that. Ryan says he's getting baptized in a couple weeks. Based. Yo, epic. Let's go. Congrats, King. Congrats. By the way, if you guys didn't see my Instagram live from last night, I will be posting that probably members only tomorrow or something. Last night's IG live, that was so, let me just say, that's one of our most based IG lives. Like, I was tired. I was kind of like uncensored. It was a great live. And you will be able to access it. Actually, you can go access it right now on my personal IG if you go to my personal account, which I'm not going to tell you. You have to find it yourself. It's not that hard, but you got to find my personal IG. Go over to the IGTV. You'll see it there. But starting tomorrow, I'll probably take it down and then put it on the members tab or something. Taoism, not globalism, will be our credo. Can you guys stop saying it's Taoism? The reason why I call it Vince Dow nationalism and not Taoism, because I don't want to be mistaken for that cringe, hippie, yin-yang, whatever nonsense, pagan nonsense that is Taoism. Taoism is stupid. Taoism is dumb, okay? But Vince Dow nationalism, not globalism, that indeed will be our credo. But there is a difference. Do not mistake the two. Okay, do not be deceived. The most important words are do not be deceived. Do not be deceived. Taoism is Bernie Sanders is true. Taoism is cringe is true. Elijah's producer must bring the Dow Doyle duo. It's true. Send me that article. I'm just saying, reading every chat saying it's true. That'd be funny. What is the greatest of all time Trump tweet? Oh. Probably, that's a hard question, actually. What is the greatest Trump tweet? Probably the I love Hispanics tweet. I'll just go basic because that's the one we always reference. I don't know if I have a preference, but it's like, oh, that's the one I'm always bringing up. It must be the best in my eyes. So I would probably say the I love Hispanics tweet. That was a great tweet. That's just one of like the best things ever. So Elijah needs you and Doyle on to roast porn stars. Oh, screw the porn stars. I want to roast the porn addicts. The porn addicts are the ones who need to be criticized, because I think without the porn addicts, there are no porn stars. I think it's more so the cooming that feels the porn than it is the porn that feels the cooming in many ways. I don't know. I would have to flesh out that take, but Bryce Pitts has to go. All right, good night, my guy. Kofefe is a classic, or his Arabic tweets. Which nationalism is better, far right or farm right? I mean, no, farm right or Vince Dow nationalism. I gotta show for myself, okay? We love the farm right, but I think it's farm right patriotism and it's Vince Dow nationalism. See, there's a little bit of a difference. There's a little bit of the difference here. So, our feds are watching the stream. Feds are always watching the stream. I actually have been investigated by the FBI. I do know that, but they didn't really. They kind of left me alone. But I have confirmation that the feds did look into me. I know that from certain sources. Gotta go, Vince, but you're wonderful. Keep it up. All right, have a good night, Jennifer. We'll probably end the stream soon, too. We're just kind of vibing, having fun. Carter Shaw says, I am autistic. Aren't we all? Aren't we all? We are all autistic. It is Autistic Boy Autumn, and we are all autistic. It's true. It's true. I personally like more. Okay. These feds probably think Vince is a white supremacist. I don't think the feds really think anything of anyone. I think they just know what is a threat to the regime and what it's not. And so that's just basically like, I don't think he's a white supremacist. It's just like, this person is a threat to the gay American empire. So we must target this person. We must harass this person. We must persecute this person. Like, I think that's all there really is to it. I don't think they look at us and they're like, oh, he's a white nationalist. He's a racist. It's just like, no, this person is asking the wrong questions. So, we're going to go after this person. The Asian face of white supremacy. It's true. It's true. Literally the case. The feds are watching because Vince loves Richard Nixon, and so do we. Unironically true. Literally true. TVN64 says autism is inherently based. No, it is. It is. People say it's a disorder. It's a superpower. It's a superpower, my neighbor. It's a superpower. Richard Nixon sucked. Disagree with that take. I know what you're going to say, but the gold standard, but China. You know what else? He was one of the he was like the only president basically who was serious about communist infiltration of our institutions. That's why they tried to take your boy down. That's why they tried to replace him with Reagan. There's a reason. It's also not really true that, people blame Nixon for the China thing, but it's really important to understand, we had like decades along the way to stop this, right? To kind of cut it off with China. Nobody wanted to do it. So, I would argue, Nixon only opened up to China to rift from the Soviet Union. I'd argue that if we had responsible leadership later on, we could have gotten the best of both worlds. We could have cut it off before they became a super big time economic superpower. Because, China didn't really open its economy until like the 90s. Like the late 80s, early 90s is when they actually started to liberalize their economy and really become like this kind of power, right, to try to rival us. That's only something that has happened rather recently. So, you had plenty of chances along the way for honest people to say, okay, we no longer need this rift, because the rifting, breaking China away from the Soviet Union actually worked. Like it actually was effective. But it was just that, nobody along the line decided, oh, let's not do this. So. Nixon also made the EPA. I don't consider the EPA to be an inherently bad thing. I think it's just that, when it's used to make cringe regulations, it's cringe. But I actually like the idea of having an EPA. Like, hot take, I don't know, but I don't even think that's an own, to be honest. It's like, oh, he made an institution, he made an agency that is now used against us because our enemies now hold all the political power. Okay. But it's also the case that Nixon was one of the people who was trying to stop the left-wing infiltration of our institutions. Okay, there's kind of evidence of this. And you wonder why they took him down again and replaced him with Reagan. In terms of being like the conservative figure, something to consider. Something to consider. But you got rid of the gold standard, or whatever. It's like, dude, okay. Reagan would have gotten rid of the gold standard too. Like it was kind of destined that was going to happen. But you look at the intangibles, the things that were unique about Nixon that were not unique to most of the rest of the political class. It becomes kind of obvious why they didn't like this guy, why they tried so hard to take this guy down. That's what I'm saying. So the APA sucks. They give pointless regulations like my parents' rock company for regulations. Okay, read the comment under Obama. Any institution of any part of the government, EPA or no EPA, is going to be used weaponized by whoever holds the political power. Okay, so that's what I'm trying to say. But I don't think the concept of the APA is inherently bad. I think it was actually a good idea in many ways. It's just that, obviously, as existing as a governmental institution, like anything else, when it's controlled by people you don't like, it's going to be used against you. Like, obviously, that's why you don't let the enemies take control. Oh, who didn't want to let them take control? Richard Nixon. Who allowed them to take control? The GOP and the conservative movement that sort of pushed away Nixon and came after Nixon. That's why we're fans of Nixon, folks. That's why we like Nixon. Okay? If you take this into account, few will realize this, but, look, if you want to understand why we are pro-Nixon, look up Nixon's kind of tapes on homosexuality. Okay, you can look that up. You can look up his quote about how professors and the media and the institutions in Hollywood are the enemy and are being infiltrated by communists. Like, you'll actually find that this whole cultural Marxism talking point that sort of the right has magically discovered over the past year, that was something that Nixon saw was happening in the 70s, and people thought he was crazy for it. People thought he was schizophrenic for it, but deep down, they knew he was right. Exactly why I believe firmly that that's kind of why they wanted to take him out so bad. And that's why they replaced him with Ronald Reagan, who was basically just a more charismatic version of Barry Goldwater, because they knew that setting the standard of conservatism and the standard of Republican politics in America to be that of fusionism, right, to be that of the National Review and William Buckley and Ronald Reagan, people like that, would make conservatism basically totally futile, right, totally ineffective against the march of the left through our institutions, and hence having the conservative movement only exist as like controlled opposition, right? That's why we're pro-Nixon. Okay, understand that is why we're pro-Nixon. I think enough kind of understanding of Nixon and why Nixon was different and why Nixon stood out, but the gold standard, but China. That is why we like Nixon, okay? And frankly, if the GOP resembled that, the GOP was actually kind of a cool party. It was actually a pretty solid party when it was the party of Richard Nixon and Dwight Eisenhower. Like, we don't agree with everything necessarily, but it was a pretty solid, definitely much better than the current Republican Party, definitely much better than the Republican Party of Ronald Reagan or George Bush, right? And why do you think they tried to sabotage that identity of the GOP so bad? Because it was actually pretty effective, because it worked, because it was actually a bulwark against the Bolsheviks, okay? So what do you think the Bolsheviks are going to do? You understand that? So we like Nixon. I like Nixon, And if you understand Nixon, I think you understand what he was trying to do. You can't actually look past things like, whatever, Nixon important again. Like honestly, like Nixon, instead of all this Reagan LARPing, we should be Nixon LARPing. Like that's what we should be doing as a movement. How you guys look at Ronald Reagan, I look at Richard Nixon and Dwight Eisenhower. Like honestly, sort of the post World War II kind of more or less kind of skeleton model for what we believe. We don't believe everything, but like a pretty solid outline of how to kind of approach politics, right? And how to strategize politics and kind of in a blanket way, mostly what we believe, right? So that's the deal. I like Eisenhower more. I mean, they're both solid, but Nixon was Eisenhower's VP. So, but Watergate, Watergate, biggest hit job in political history. It's true. Like seriously, why do you think they tried so hard to discredit Richard Nixon so much? I mean, Nixon shot himself in the foot with Watergate. I would argue he was shot in the foot with Watergate, but Pat Buchanan was cool with Nixon, so that got to count for something. People should read Pat Buchanan's books on Nixon, which I've been planning to do. I hear they're pretty good though. Coolidge was great. Coolidge was great too. We love Coolidge. Everything Nixon did is legal today. Good point. Clinton got kicked off the Watergate Commission. How corrupt. It's so true. Forrest Gump was, I know, cringe. MFers out here like Forrest Gump is base. No, he's cringe. Forrest Gump took down our boy. He ain't do nothing. All right, Nixon, our boy Nixon ain't do nothing. All right, and Forrest Gump. I will forever dislike Forrest Gump because of that. Can't believe what he did. Took down our boy Nixon. Are you serious? You serious? I want to get Pat Buchanan's book, A Republic, Not an Empire. That's actually his favorite book of mine. Not gonna lie. Nixon won in a bigger landslide than Reagan did. True. Nixon won the most landslided election in history, only behind George Washington. True. And it's like we always try to idolize like the 1984 election, like it was the coolest thing ever. It was pretty cool, but the 1972 election, same story, right? We can't look up to that, right? I think if Nixon was allowed to finish out his term, he would have been a very impactful president because he was making a lot of waves before, right? He would basically be our Ronald Reagan, right? Because keep in mind, I think if Nixon finishes out his term, we never get Ronald Reagan, or maybe we do get Ronald Reagan. But keep in mind, Ronald Reagan was someone who was not the biggest ideologue himself. The guy's an actor, right? He's involved in politics, but he was an actor. Ronald Reagan, if he did end up running after Nixon, would have been someone who was influenced mainly by Richard Nixon and Dwight Eisenhower as opposed to Barry Goldwater and William Buckley. Like, people need to understand this, right? And so we would get, if Nixon was allowed to stay out his term for decades, I think the Republican Party overall would be decades ahead of the curve on all the things that we're currently just awaking to now. We would have understood these things. We would have been like 40 years ahead on all these things. But he opened up trade to China. Okay, be quiet for 2 seconds. If Nixon had stayed in power, he would have been the gold standard of the Republican Party, not Ronald Reagan. Imagine how different things would be. Imagine how ahead of the curve, ahead of everything we would be as a party. We, I think, would actually have been ready to use some institutional power while we still had it to stop all this stuff. Instead, it gets to the point where we lose all the institutional power we ever had, and that's only the point where we realize it, thanks to Reaganism, thanks to those people. Whereas on the other hand, if Nixon was our Reagan, right? Nixon was the guy setting the standard for our party. You would have a much different party. You'd have a much different movement. You have a much different country. I mean, seriously. So Vince Dow is the first president to win 49 states. It's true. And yeah, I do think that shady things happened in the 1960 election. I think that's widely accepted upon, actually. And let me be clear for YouTube. I'm talking about the 1960 election, not the other election. Nixon is the first president to win 49 states. So true. But MFers like, but Ronald Reagan. We did it first. We did it first. If Nixon was elected in the 60s, the 1965 Immigration Act would have never happened. True. So true. So true. Nixon, our boy. That's why they tried to stop him. And then we get these copers because he opened up China and the gold standard. They don't get it. They don't get it. Do you guys not get it? You guys don't get it. You guys really don't. I need to shave this so bad. It's like, all right, before we wrap up the stream, actually, we need to get an assessment on the beard. Okay? So I have not shaved since Friday. So as you can see, we're going a little bit of a beard here. I'll be honest, I don't like it. It's making me break out. This is not good. Asians are not meant to grow facial hair. We don't do it correctly. But I promised last night on stream, as you can see, that I would make one piece of content with a beard. With a stubble, rather, or whatever this is. So that's what we're doing. I was thinking about keeping this, but then I was just like, oh, this actually kind of hurts, and I just don't like this. It's just not fun. It's actually an impediment and a distraction having this peach fuzz here all the time. So, but there you go. You get facial hair vids for once. A rare sight. You will not see it again for a long time. Let me tell you that. So, I think I need to look into Nixon now. If Nixon finished, we totally would have gotten POTUS Pat. Most likely, yeah. Most likely. Nobody's thinking about this, though. Nobody's taking this into account. Everyone's just out here like, well, but Richard Nixon abolished the gold standard. Like, okay. The case for Nixon is a strong one. Keep the beard. We're not going to keep the beard. We just can't. We just can't do it. It doesn't work on me. It literally does not work on me. I'm Asian. It doesn't work. I'm actually unsuited. I'm actually unsuited as a human being to have a beard. And it's like I said, it's like actually just making me like break out near the hair. I don't like it. I don't like it, folks. And like if I was white, like I said, I could grow like an even beard. But because I'm Asian, you know, the beard grows all like weird places. So it doesn't grow evenly. So stop hiding. I'm not hiding my face. You can clearly see my face, buddy. Vince, are you a hyphenated American? No, never. Vince, what are your thoughts on Nixon calling Gandhi a bitch? Is that the Gandhi or is that a different Gandhi? Because I know Gandhi had a bunch of like children who ran for office. Is that Gandhi's actual first name? Yeah, yeah, it's Mahatma whatever Gandhi though you're talking. I don't. I'm assuming you're talking then about like a later Indian politician, and I don't really know the deal there. Grow beard for Genghis Khan bloodline. I'm not Mongol. I probably am part Mongol, to be honest, because we all know that Genghis Khan basically raped like 10% of Asia, but I don't like it. I don't like the beard. I don't like the beard. Like it just doesn't feel nice. It doesn't feel nice. It actually kind of feels kind of gross. Like I said, it just doesn't grow correctly on us. Shane Keena, who is a Florida State Seminole. Very interesting. What do we think about that on this channel? I don't know. But Shane, thank you very much for the $10. Says it's sort of like where the first skyscraper was built. Exactly. Which innovation brought more change? Elevators or structural steel? So true. Nixon had better political mechanics. That's for damn sure. It is so true. It is just a perfect point. Look, we got a Nixon pill, people. Actually, you know who's probably the best Nixon piller? He didn't Nixon pill me, but I know he's very pro-Nixon. It's probably David Carlson. Me and David are kind of like this interesting like niche where we're very pro Nixon and we're very pro Alexander Hamilton. Like that's kind of our little niche community. We need to expand that. We need to expand that. Now David is more of a history guy than me, so maybe David should. I'm going to tell David, if you're watching this, you should make videos on Hamilton and on Nixon. You probably can articulate it better than me because you know more about it than me. But we love Nixon and we actually like Hamilton, so. HS says, why are you pro Hamilton? Well, I think when you understand things properly, you understand that Hamilton was actually the most conservative of our founding fathers by the true definition of conservatism. And Jefferson, like this is what's very backward about our modern day politics. Jefferson is considered really by its true definitions to be the most liberal founding father, right? I think Hamilton did not try as much to really sacrifice America to this sort of false idealistic vision of, you know, Jeffersonian democracy or whatever. Like that's kind of why we're fans of Hamilton. You look at actually kind of what Hamilton believed and what Hamilton wanted America to look like. It's actually very similar, I would say, to like the modern day national conservatism. Like that's kind of who he was. Whereas Jefferson, more so in many ways, was kind of like he's basically a liberal, right? Not in like the modern contemporary sense, but in the liberation of human nature, the rejection of natural hierarchy sense. And I think Hamilton naturally understood it more. You know, you look at their stances, especially on the French Revolution. If you need any explanation, you know, who was the anti-French Revolution guy? Who was the pro-French Revolution guy? Right? You know, so you know, I'll talk about this another time at some point. Actually, you want to get a good explanation of this, members only Q&A. The members only Q&A, folks. Become a member. All right, consider becoming a member. Down in the description. Our recent Q&A, we actually talked about this in length, but, you know, it's important also to understand, traditionally speaking, Jefferson was more associated with, like, democratic politics in America, like, you know, FDR and kind of that class of Democrats all the way up until that point was like pro Jefferson. These people not so much pro Hamilton as they were, pro Jefferson. So something to keep in mind. It's very backwards today because Hamilton, by definition, was the most conservative founding father. Jefferson, by definition, was the most liberal founding father. So, hey, Vince, do a member shout out for this stream. It's so true. Thanks for reminding me. I always forget to do that. We ought to do that. All right. Let us pull up the members list real quick. American Populist Crusade says, what do you recommend doing to learn more about the true history of the U.S. and not the lib version taught in public schools? There are certain, I guess, things you can watch and read, but I mean, honestly, overall, just kind of pick the right books that you like. Some of the things we talk about, I don't think it's necessary necessarily to become a full on like conservative historian unless you're like into that. I think it's more important to recognize which ideas work and what's kind of needed to be done in the current day. And I think kind of learning history is almost sort of a bonus. But Shane Keena sends $5 and he says, and I am 0-7, but if you want to learn Nixon, definitely the Buchanan books I hear are pretty good. Shane Keena says, and I am 0-7 on football this year with the Knowles and Giants. Oh, gosh. I feel so sorry for you. You are a Knowles fan and a Giants fan. Wow. Well, Shane is just kind of a walking L in a way. I don't mean that. I don't mean that to be insulting. It's just kind of tragic, actually. I'd rather have my football team lose so my political team post these W's. It's true, though. It's true. If that were the trade-off, I would have to take that too. But, man, Florida State, I don't know what's going on with that program. I kind of do know. It's just like they just don't have the talent, but it's so hard to really have the player. I think the players have given up. I think after Jacksonville State, in many ways, they kind of just gave up. It takes a lot of willpower to stay in the season. And I don't think you're really going to get, I don't know, maybe you'll see, maybe they'll win a few games late and it'll be kind of like a turnaround, but the hole that program is in. And we thought after the Notre Dame game, like, hey, it's going to be a pretty good season, but little did we know. Jim Eagle says Indians are racist. The name Indians are racist, but Celtics are not. Racism against whites is okay, basically. It's not basically. It is true. Like, it literally is the case. Well, racism, quote unquote, because I wouldn't consider mascots to be racism, but we know that's the standard. Like, the standard is actively and openly anti-white. Like, there's nothing else to it. Like, that's literally what it is. All right, let me pull up the members list so we can give shout out to our wonderful, wonderful members. We love our members, don't we, folks? We literally love our members. All right, we got our members list. All right, shout out to our members, folks. Shout out to I forget. I think I said tier 2 or higher, right? That's who gets it. So that's who I will give the shout outs to. All right. Shout out, first of all, to Dalpac General. Shout out to Asher Meekoff. We love Asher. Shout out Carter Shaw, of course. We love Carter Shaw. Be sure to go subscribe to Carter's channel, by the way. And then we got shout out to, oh, you guys are general. I'm sorry. Okay. You guys got free shout outs. You guys got free shout outs you weren't supposed to get, but we'll just shout out all the members. Why the heck not? Shout out Red and White Productions, Vince Dow Patriot. Love to see it. Shout out Jose Rodriguez. Shout out to Goat. Christian Lee. We love Christian Lee, don't we, folks? Shout out to Christian Lee. Vince Dow Nationalist here. And so is Goat. Shout out Christopher Graves. We haven't seen Christopher on this channel for a while, but shout out to Christopher Graves. We love Christopher Graves. Shout out to Grady. Grady Deal, the chat I met. I don't know if I'm allowed to say which event, but the chat I met in real life. We've met Grady Deal in real life, folks. Shout out to Vince Dow Nationalist, Grady Deal. Shout out to Sam Madsen, even though he always says my audio is off, which it was not. Shout out to Robert A. Taft, Vince Dow Nationalist, and shout out to Video Maker. We love Video Maker, don't we, folks? So shout out to the members. Let's go. Let's go. Thank you very much for the support. Become a membership nationalist today. It's true. You should. Unironically, the members are going to be getting a basically brand new perk, which is like access to all of the old Instagram lives and the new ones that I have like access to. That's all going to go on like the members tab. So if you want to see the Instagram lives, pretty fun, especially the one last night. That was a great live. That was a great live. We talked about everything. We talked We talked about Russia. We talked about Putin. It was a pretty solid live. We talked about women. It was like I said, it was a spicy live stream. It's gonna go up on the members tab hopefully tomorrow if I can get it uploaded in time. So you don't want to miss it. Consider becoming a member. Link in the description or click the join button. Women, don't you mean feds? Yeah, I do mean feds. That's true. That's true. That's true. Jim Eagle says, why is John Locke not very well liked? Because John Locke was a liberal. So liberalism, like properly understood, right? Not in terms of, well, liberalism is one big government, conservatism is one small government. Liberalism essentially is, you know, you can kind of tell in the word, it's liberation of the self. Liberation of the self from what exactly? And I'd argue many ways it's worship of the self. But liberalism is basically, you know, so if I think to understand liberalism, we have to, you know, I'm considering if I should do this, or if I'm considering if we should we should reserve this for its own content. That's why I'm debating, like, even answering your question right now. But like should we actually explain it, or should we save this take? Because I feel like this take is something that's too good to just be left to like a end of stream thing. 90% of women are feds, VinceDao. True. I know we're gonna save this. Yeah, Noah, you're right. We're gonna save this take. We're gonna save this take, okay? But to get the basics of it, you know, individualism, the idea that if we just liberate the self from human nature and from hierarchy, from the laws of God, and basically give the freedom, right, for that individual to do whatever that they want, that is inherently liberalism. Like that is liberalism by nature, liberalism by definition, and everything you see today is basically the consequences of actual liberalism. So Cowboy69 says, thoughts on Ron Paul? I think he's pretty based and way more socially conservative than most libertarians. And if you look at his takes and Pat Buchanan's, they're very similar. Not on a lot of issues, just basically on foreign policy. But you know, Ron Paul, I don't hate Ron Paul, right? Ron Paul is not bad. Actually, Ron Paul was pretty solid on immigration, I think. So, you know, that's pretty good too. You know, not a fan, not a supporter, but I don't hate the guy. You know, I think he did hit the mark on some things, and I think I would much rather prefer modern libertarians to be like Ron Paul than to be like these cringe TikTok, you know, black and yellow flag people. So, what do you think of Rand Paul? Rand Paul is better than Ron, I think, but yeah, he's just kind of a libertarian. But like, I mean, I'm not supporters of them really ideologically, but I don't not like super opposed to them. Like I think they're okay. For libertarians, they're not bad. Like they get it on some of the right issues, whether it's like civil corruption in the government, stuff like that. So I don't really mind it entirely. It's very true. It's very true. Edmund Burke is the move, not John Locke. Go short and spiky on the head of hair, and go for that 5 o'clock shadow. Physiognomy suggests beards are back on the menu for politics. Like I said, in some ways, the issue is that I'm Asian. Now, I have the genetics to actually grow hair because I'm a quarter Italian. The problem is it grows in Asian facial patterns, which means it's disconnected and uneven. Asians are meant to be clean shaven. Like it's just that's just the point, you know. So that's the issue. That's the issue. We're stuck to a certain method. I'm trying to grow mutton chops and a mustache. Yo, base. Yo, Chad. You know, walk around. Now, I will say, if you're going to do that, you got to do it right. See, Will Witt, I don't know if you guys saw Will Witt's mustache. Okay, we love Will Witt. But Will Witt's mustache, right? It looked very like 1800s. Like by the end. By the end, it wasn't even looking like a 70s porn star. He was looking like he was out of the 1800s. The issue is I think if you're gonna have a mustache that looks like it's the 1800s, you have to dress like the 1800s. You know, you can't be dressing like in contemporary fashion. That's the thing. I feel like if Will, when Will was at the later days of his mustache, he should have just embraced it. Walk around in a top hat, walk around in like a hand tailored suit, like it would have worked. But the reason it looks so weird out of place is because Will dresses like in a contemporary way, which is fine. But like it doesn't work with the mustache. See, that's the issue. So I think if you're gonna do the mutton chops and the mustache, you gotta have the apparel to fit with it. You know, you can't be wearing like t-shirts and jeans and be having that type of hair. It's gonna look weird. You gotta fit. You're gonna go trad on the facial hair. You gotta go trad in the dress too. Like literally have the dress like it's the 1800s. So Will Witt's mustache was cool. I wasn't a fan. And I wasn't a fan because I was fundamentally opposed. Like I said, I feel like it just didn't fit. It didn't really fit his facial structure. So, anyways, guys, we'll probably wrap the stream up soon. Libertarians are porn addicts. So true. So true. Unironically, one of the big reasons why people are libertarians is because they're addicted to porn or weed or both. Or sex. Or sex. So. All right. I think we're going to wrap up the stream here, guys. So, with that being said, thank you very much for watching. Like I said, consider becoming a member because we have an exclusive IG live for you tomorrow. Very spicy, big stuff, big numbers. Some of the biggest what they say we've seen. And I'll see you guys probably the video on Friday, hopefully, if I have time. I don't know if I have time. Like I said, it is exam week here, but we're doing our best. We're doing our best to get you the content. So with that being said, thank you very much for watching. Have a good night. God bless. Don't let the bed bugs bite. Not today, Satan. It's so true. Have a good night, guys. Don't forget to pray before you sleep. So true. Have a good night.